how you doing? Here we are again in the front yard of my house in the Pacific Northwest in the glorious Southwest Washington state. It's balmy 72 or so here, but definitely comfortable and much better than in Japan. Now, I did a haul video, a book mail haul from some books that book fiend Nick sent me. I also got 2 boxes recently, or I guess previous months before I came here. My good friend David at Garage Geek sent me a couple of massive boxes. Well, one big box and one small but heavy box full of books, paperbacks, and comics. And so I thought I'd go through the books now, and if I have time, I'll try to get the comics as well. I don't know how much of this I'll be able to bring back to Japan with me, but I plan to get as much as I can crammed in there. So let's get started, okay? We have some crime and detective stuff. We have some science fiction and fantasy. We have some westerns. We have a bunch of stuff. So first off, let me get started here. David sent me some very cool pocket books, these little stubby or stumpy pocket books, rack size. Perry Mason solves the case of the lucky loser. Nice there. The corpse died twice. Love these little silver spined ones. These are all in plastic, wrapped in plastic. This one's in really nice shape. This is Perry Mason solves the case of the buried clock. The buried clock. Looks like the wind's pushing the camera around a little bit. Sorry about that, guys. Was the fatal bullet in the body? The question jarred Paul Drake. What put that idea in your mind, Perry? Was it? Mason asked again. No, the bullet didn't go clean through the body, and the bullet isn't there. That's why the autopsy surgeon has held up his report. How's that for a cool cover? Gotta like these vintage covers with the sexy ladies on them. Perry Mason solves the case of the sunbather's diary. Perry Mason suspected of murder. Yeah, I don't think that's a McGinnis cover, but it's pretty dang cool. David also knew I was, a fan of Dorothy L. Sayers. I recently, or a little while ago, did a video about Dorothy L. Sayers' oeuvre, her work overall, and there were a lot of books of hers that I don't have. And so he sent me some. I've read most of these, but not all of them. And he sent me a few extras that I don't have, so this is cool. Dorothy L. Sayers, Have His Carcass. I know it looks like car case, but it's pronounced carcass. And these are Avon editions. We have a non-Lord Peter Wimsey case, the documents in the case. She wrote this with Robert Eustace, who was I believe, a medical doctor specializing in poisons. And this is kind of a epistolary novel where you piece together who might have poisoned the head of a household. Several possible suspects. The astounding Lord Peter Wimsey proves that death with no motives or clues can still be murder, unnatural death. Again, they have the same image on the back. Anyway, these Avon versions are very nice. Thanks again, David, for all of these. And he knew I had pretty much a complete Mr. Moto collection except for one book. And so he found one of these really cool Little Brown and Company editions, of which I have 4 already, I think. This is Your Turn, Mr. Moto. Look at that cover. It's pretty. This is not a old vintage cover, but it's, old enough. I think these were published in the 80s. It says copyright renewed 1963, republished July 1985. Yeah, so the year I graduated high school. Okay. Some kind of random different ones here. We have Introducing Anthony Maitland, British Super Sleuth, Courtroom Genius, Bloody Instructions by Sarah Woods. And this one's in really nice shape. This appears to be an Avon mystery. Murder in Chambers, which is what they would call the place where the barristers do their work in London and other parts of England. Then we have a Gregor Demarchian holiday mystery by Jane Haddam, Feast of Murder. This is a newer book, of course. In this series, he's Demarkian is always somewhere on holiday and solving mysteries or crimes that come up. Death with All the Trimmings. So this seems to be maybe a Thanksgiving set by the Edgar-nominated author of Not a Creature Was Stirring, which must have been a Christmas one. David sent me a series of very pristine copies of Robert Forsyth. He's a barrister, but kind of amateur. I guess he's not amateur sleuth. He's professional, but he solves cases either involving his particular court case or on the side. So we have, I don't know which one's the first of these. They're all out of order. So apologies for time. I'll just throw them up. I believe this is the first one. Anyway, we have A Death for a Dilettante. And again, these are Ballantine editions, but look at that. Looks like they've hardly been touched. A Death for a Doctor. Again, I don't really have to show you the back. There's nothing particularly new about those or interesting about the backs, but the fronts are interesting. These kind of still life, which were quite popular in the 80s, I think. I think these are late 70s, early 80s. Let's see. E.X. Guiraud is the author's name. Yeah, 1990, maybe 80s and 90, late 80s, early 90s. And she's a Canadian writer. She's a woman, so she's going by that good old-fashioned mystery nom de plume of a couple of initials, and then, so it looks like it could be a man. This is A Death for a Double. A Death for a Darling. A Death for Adonis. And A Death for a Dancer. Now again, I don't know the order here and if there are even any more after this. I took a look at these briefly already and they look pretty good. So British style mysteries, and that's pretty cool. I think that's all the crime books I have. So let's do a little bit of science fiction. So David very nicely sent me some cool ace doubles. The 5 Gold Bands by Jack Vance. Flip it over and we have the Dragon Masters. Dragon Masters. Of course you have the blue and white spine there. And this one has a little foxing or something on the front, but it's otherwise in pretty good shape considering it's an ace double. We have Beware the Masks of Mars, Space Station Number 1 by Frank Belknap Long. And then flipping it over, Empire of the Atom by A.E. Van Vogt. Now this is not a white and blue, this is a red and blue. I know there's some kind of a time difference or era difference of when they were coming out. They changed some of the spines. Then I have a couple of regular mass market size, not stumpy ones. There I have R.A. Lafferty's Space Chanty, The Odyssey of Space Captain Rodstrom. And then on the other side, Ernest Hill, Pity About Earth. I'll try not to block any of the art there. The old planet's gone, but our ways are still headline news. So these must be later ace doubles if they're in the trade paper or the mass market paperback versions. Then we have a Ron Goulart ace double, Clockwork Pirates and Ghost Breaker. Then we have a non-double. We have Harry Harrison, The Technicolor Time Machine. The most spectacular historical epic of all time. Why pay for costumes, scenery, props, or actors when the most brilliant drama of all time is unfolding before your very eyes in vivid color? In 1050 AD, join the film crew of that stupendous motion picture saga, Viking Columbus, as they journey back in time to capture history in the making. Right on time, another train. It's not a siren anyway. By the way, interesting packaging material, David. We have bandage roll. That works. Protected the books very well. Before I get too far into science fiction, there is another thriller, and that's Ken Follett, Eye of the Needle. This is a more modern paperback, and I have heard of the movie of this, but I haven't read the book. It's one of those taller mass market paperbacks that are common, that were common at least, and still maybe are today. Okay, We have some DAWs, including DAWs from after the yellow spine, plus some yellow spines, I think. Yeah. So we have Christmas Bestiary. This is a collection of stories, a rollicking new collection of all original holiday tales about those legendary creatures of enchantment. Edited by Rosalind M. Greenberg and Martin M. Greenberg. So I guess it's his wife is editing with him. Christmas Bestiary. Interesting. And then we have, these are very cool. We have, again, yellow spine and a not yellow spine. I guess it was just a cutoff from the year. We have Donald A. Walheim. Donald A. Walheim presents the 1981 annual World's Best SF. The Authentic Top 10 by Norman Spinrad, Marion Zimmer Bradley, John Varley, Sharon Webb, Howard Waldrop, and others. George R.R. Martin has Night Flyers in here. That's a famous story. Lisa Tuttle, Michael G. Coney, Lee Killiu, and Bob Lehman in that one. And then a few years later, that's 81 and now 85. So by this time, there's no more yellow spine. This one obviously had the nice yellow spine, and then they stopped doing that. But this one still is nice looking. The 1985 annual World's Best SF. Excellent. Featuring the top 10 stories of the year by Stephen Donaldson, John Dalmas, Connie Willis, Ian Watson, John Varley, and others. So let's see what else we got. They just kind of say the first ones that are on the contents page. We have a story by Lucius Shepard, George Alec Effinger, Octavia Butler, Gary W. Shockley, and Tanith Lee. So that's a good lineup right there. Good old Andre Norton. We have Yurth Burden. That's a cool cover. And again, this is a yellow spine daw. Thank you, David. The world of Zakar was racked with storms, and life there was hard, yet two races shared it with no love between them. The Rasky were the first people, the Yurth the late comers. This is the story of Alosa, the Yurth girl who followed the call that every Yurth sensitive must follow when the time comes. And this is the story of Stans, the Rasky, who had to achieve manhood by blood right against a hated Yurth. Very nice condition. Gotta love these daws. And he sent me Blood Brothers of Gore. Speaking of daw, this is a late period Gore novel, the 18th book of the Tarl Cabot saga, which means heavy BDSM stuff going on in here, for a total of 480 pages. So I don't know about that one, but we'll take a look at it. I like the early Gore books. The first 3 or 4 are pretty good. Next we have Diana Wynne Jones, The Tough Guide to Fantasyland. More modern one, maybe from the 90s, I'm guessing. An uproarious, comprehensive guide for anyone daring to venture into the unknown realms of Fantasyland. Yeah, it's set up like a, A through Z sort of alphabetical thing. Have you ever lost your companion in a bog? Had trouble identifying a member of the Assassin's Guild? Been unable to communicate with the local dragon? Had a hard time figuring out the difference between dwarfs, orcs, gnomes, and trolls? Fear no more. Help is on the way. Looks interesting. Then he must have got these in a lot, David, because it's a huge mass of Orson Scott Card. Now, confession time, I've never read any Orson Scott Card. I'm familiar with a little bit of his work and a little bit of the controversy about him, but none of these are in order that I can tell because I don't know much about him. I haven't had a chance to research it, put them in proper order, so I'm just going to show them. We have his most famous novel, as far as I'm aware, Ender's Game. And these seem to be Tor books. Children of the Mind. Pardon if these are all out of order, and Orson Scott Card fans are saying, nah, you got the 4th book instead of the 2nd one. Shadow of the Hegemon. Shadow Puppets. That appears to be a sequel. I think I've heard of this one. Speaker for the Dead. Maybe that's a sequel to Ender's Game. Xenocide. One more. Ender's Shadow. So that's a fat stack of Orson Scott Card. We have a few more science fiction ones that I missed there. We have this one, which I have heard about and heard really good things about. To Say Nothing of the Dog by Connie Willis. And this is a Bantam Books edition. And this is brand new, it feels like no one's ever hardly touched this sucker. Maybe read once. This was published in 1998. So it's probably, not new, but it's in good shape. Back to the Dawes. I must have mixed this one up, sorry. This one is The Lord's Pink Ocean by David Walker. A novel of the future, a shrewd, unsettling post-doomsday tale, Kirkus Reviews. That's a pretty cool cover. Daws usually pretty reliable for covers, these yellow spine daws. Red tide destroys millions of fish along sea coast. Such were the headlines in American newspapers at the time. At the very time, the hardbound edition of this remarkable novel appeared. Subtitled A Novel of the Future, David Walker's The Lord's Pink Ocean seemed to be coming true in the very present, but the red tide of mutated algae slowly went away that year. But will it come again? Soon? So maybe it's kind of an eco-disaster sort of novel. Cool. And then a few more fantasy novels or collections of novels or collections of stories. We have another Daw, late period Daw, not yellow spine, Vampire Detectives, edited by Martin H. Greenberg, not M. Greenberg. 19 blood-chilling new tales of vampires who stalk the night in search of crimes to commit or criminals to be stopped. Looks like a vampire holding a 45 there or something. Let's see who's in here. It's a little bent on one side, but that's no problem whatsoever. Very readable. Looks like got a story by Ed Gorman, William F. Nolan, some heavy hitter horror writers here. Marianne Malsberg and Kathy Koja, J.N. Williamson, Max Allan Collins, Edward D. Hoke, John Marley, Jack Ketchum, P.N. Elrod, John Lutz, who's more known, I think, as a mystery writer, Richard Lehman, Nancy Holder, and others. Cool. A Xanth book. Boy, I haven't read a Xanth book in ages. I used to kind of tee-hee at them and their kind of juvenile, kind of mildly naughty humor when I was a teenager. But here's Nightmare. The danger to Xanth was so great that only a night space mare could offer help. Look at this awesome Darrell K. Sweet cover. The Xanth books were always blessed with great art by Darrell K. Sweet. Beware the Horsemen. The next wave of barbarian warriors was invading Xanth from the north, ravaging and destroying as they advanced, but Mare Imbrium had her own problems. Ever since she had gained the half-soul, the Nightmare had began to mishandle her job of delivering bad dreams. Now the Night Stallion dismissed her, exiling her to the day world with a message for King Trent, beware the Horsemen. Cool. All right, I haven't read Xanth for a while. And then we have, looks like a trilogy that by a woman named Doris Egan. The entire Ivory trilogy, now available in one omnibus volume. So it's a fatty. This is, we have The Gate of Ivory, 2-Bit Heroes, Gilt-Edged Ivory. So it seems like some kind of magic and science sort of related thing. Get away, B. 896 pages for all 3 books. So again, pretty new, almost like no one's ever touched it hardly. The books we're going to finish up with some cool westerns. We have Kansas Blood by J. Mitchell. The Dead Don't Talk. We have Death Song by Bill Dugan. We have a little beat up, but pretty cool looking. I think it's still readable. Hopefully it won't fall apart while I'm reading it. The Oregon Hills were ablaze with a renegade's vengeance and a white man's violence. The Big Land. Now, I think this novel was adapted into a movie starring Alan Ladd and Charles Bronson, a young Charles Bukowski, or whatever his name was. Anyway, that looks pretty cool. Seems to be a wraparound cover, but I'm not going to open it up because I'm afraid of the book falling apart on me. That was by Dwight Bennett, and this one is by Frank Cannon. Bloody Texas Trail. There's hell to pay when an outlaw defends his honor. And finally, The Gallowsman. Will Cade, author of Flee the Devil. The past won't die. Ben Woolard is a man ready to start over. The life he's leaving behind is none too pretty, filled with ghosts and pain. When he lost his wife and children, he took to the bottle so hard he almost couldn't find his way out again. And his career as a Union spy during the war still doesn't sit quite right with him, even if the man sent to the gallows by his testimony was a murderer. But now Ben's finally sobered up, moved west to Colorado, staked out a claim, and put the past behind him. But sometimes the past won't lie still. Cool. All right. That does it for the books. I'm going to take a little break, a little pause, and I'll move over the comics box that David sent me, and we'll go through those too. Time to continue with the comics that David sent me. Now, he sent me some graphic novels, or I guess trade paperbacks, to collected editions, as well as some just kind of loose comics. So let's start with the loose comics, are the single issue comics first. And most of these are on boards already. Looks like we got a Man Bat Volume 4, Number 1. Variant cover, art by Kevin Nolan. It's pretty cool, huh? What do we got here? Looks like Tales to Astonish, starring the Submariner, Number 2. Cool. Very cool. So when I was digging through my stored books up above my family's garage, I found my box of comics, and I got a bunch of cool comics too that I'll show off in a later haul, maybe when I get back to Japan. But it's not really a haul because it's from my collection. I guess it's a haul from the collection. I don't know what you'd call that in BookTube, but anyway, the Fantastic Four, number 309. The Fall of the Mutants is coming. Man, there's bees just everywhere, man. The Incredible Hulk, which is fitting for my shirt. You guys like my Incredible Hulk shirt? Probably can't see it that well. Trial by Monster. Got another one. The Incredible Hulk, It Lives. Another Hulk, very cool. When a City Dies. What else we got here? King Conan, The Hour of the Dragon, Part 2 of 6. Interesting. This is a Dark Horse Comics. Deadpool Pulp, number 3. Deadpool Pulp, number 3. Thanks, David. These are really cool. And cool. Wolverine, Fear Itself. We got not in the world's best shape, but very cool old Rin Tin Tin comic. We have a Walt Disney Goofy, I guess. Super Goof. Got a Super Goof. I remember these old advertisements for these very cool Roman soldiers. Harvey Comics, giant size. TV, Casper and Company. It's missing the back, looks like, but, very cool to see those. Okay. Sorry, being attacked by bees out here. Okay. Then getting into the, graphic novel trade paperback size. Superman, the 81st Anniversary Collection. This is very cool. Very cool. Look, up in the sky, it's a bird, it's a plane, it's Superman. Nice. Not sure which era these are from. I'm guessing maybe it's a sampler from throughout the years. 1938, 1939, 1940, 1943, 44, 50, going all the way up to 2020. Whoa, that's not good. Lost my mic there for a second. Anyway, very cool. Yeah, you can see the kind of more modern style of art towards the end and the more traditional Superman, early Superman art to begin with. Very cool. That's very nice. And then we have a whole bunch of Marvel. I think David, a lot more kind of new versions of older superheroes. And maybe David thought I didn't have enough girl power reading material. So he sent me a bunch of interesting ones. We have some Hawkeye. Looks like 3 Hawkeye. But with, I guess, the younger female version of Kate Bishop taking over from Hawkeye. So we have Hawkeye Private Eye. Again, I don't know if these are in order or out of order. Hawkeye Team Spirit. Give you a little sense of the art in there. And that's a cool cover here, Hawkeye Go West. And David was very enthusiastic about the quality of these stories. So I'm curious to see how they are. Then we have The Unstoppable Wasp. AIM Escape. AIM Escape. This is probably a shambles with the wind blowing the camera around and trucks rattling by and stuff. We're out in the country here, folks. So that's what you get sometimes. Girl Power. Girl Power. This teenage super scientist is spreading her wings. The Unstoppable Wasp. Again, looks like solid art in there. A lot of this newer stuff I'm not familiar with. I'm not familiar with most comic stuff at all, really. So we have Ironheart, Meant to Fly. Ironheart, which was made into a TV series for Marvel. I don't think it did very well from what I heard, but the comics look cool, very bright and colorful. Riri Williams. Maybe this is the first one. The new Iron Age begins. Yeah, I probably got the first one and showed it to you second. But the art is kind of, modern style, but bright, bold colors on glossy paper. Not everyone's taste, but I think it looks pretty cool. And again, David seemed to think the stories were pretty strong. Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, The Beginning. Lunella Lafayette is an inhuman preteen genius who wants to change the world. Okay, well, I guess these were kind of meant for kids to kind of get them into reading comics, maybe. I like kid stuff, so if there's a dinosaur friend, then that's cool, all the better for me. So I'm happy with that, I guess. And we got a couple of Spider-Gwens. So I guess this is Gwen Stacy becoming Spider-Man, or Spider-Gwen. Gwen Stacy, Spider-Gwen. These are really nice and expensive editions, but they are so heavy. This box is like, oh! So depending on the weight of me shipping them back, I don't know how many I'll take, but I'll try to take a sampler of them this time and get more sent to me by my sister down the road. This is Amazing Powers. Speaking of Spider-Man, or related to Spider-Man, we have some Miles Morales. And again, I don't know. I think I might have the order. We have Miles Morales, Spider-Man. When Peter Parker falls, the world needs a Spider-Man, and young Miles Morales takes up the mantle. Maybe fighting Electro there, I'm not sure. And then after that, I'm assuming these two are in the right order. With Great Power. And you'll see they're all kind of similar editions. They have the character's name on the back with the cool little bit of art there. So we got Captain America here teaming up with Miles Morales, Spider-Man. And that was With Great Power, Great Responsibility. I'm assuming that's the next one. Again, very kind of interesting art style. Spider-Man No More. Okay, and the last two, again, very epic haul. I was sent by David. Again, something that looks pretty cool. We have The Champions, Worlds Collide. This is a little thinner one. It's got some kind of dog people in there. That's pretty cool. Worlds collide as the champions come face to face with the Avengers. Okay, the Avengers and the Champions. Okay. And then the Champions, because the world still needs heroes. Maybe this one is first, I don't know. Again, the colors are something else. I know they're probably computer assisted or computer drawn, but interesting. Anyway, that concludes this epic haul of books and comics from David at Garage Geek. Thank you so much, David. Very generous of you. You're a super generous guy, always sending out AOKs, acts of kindness to other channels. And I really appreciate your friendship and also you sending this stuff to me. I'll find lots of fun reading here. Thanks again. And for everyone watching, thanks for watching. It's a long one. If you stuck around, appreciate it. We'll see you in another haul. I just got a big box of, I think, a whole ton of Louis L'Amour from Eric at the Paperback Warrior. So that should be coming up next. Take care. We'll talk to you in the next video. See you later.